Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by The Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. So our question for the day: what should good professional development look like? You know, that's something we talk about a lot and something we spend a lot of time thinking about at AOE, because as art teachers, we all know how terrible back-to-school PD can be. You know, it's irrelevant. If it is relevant, it's probably boring. And most days you're in PD, you feel like you're wasting your time when you would much rather be in your classroom. You know, I don't know that we're ever going to solve that problem, but it is something we can talk about. And one point that I want to make is that I think it's important to consider your mindset going into professional development. As I think when you first start out as a teacher, your first few years, you're excited. Like, you're excited about everything that's going on. But as time goes on, there are a lot of teachers that lose their drive. You know, they get comfortable with how they do things. They kind of lose the urge to step out of their comfort zone. They lose the urge to do anything different. And, you know, those are the people that are always going to tune out during PD. But on the other hand, there are teachers that never stop pushing themselves to learn new things. You know, they're constantly adapting what they do. They're constantly evolving as teachers. And those are the lifelong learners that you hear so much about. And they're attentive in PD, you know, up to a point. But even more importantly, a lot of times they search out their own PD that's a little bit better, you know, a little bit more relevant to what they're doing. And if we're thinking about the mindset, you know, I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, you know, if you're somebody who's lost their drive, like if you're a teacher who has lost their drive, can you find it again? You know, and more importantly, like, can good professional development inspire you to learn more or to try new things? And if it can do that, you know, what would that look like? And I don't know that we necessarily have the answer to all of those questions. But when we are trying to take on some of these big picture topics, there is nobody better than Mr. Andrew McCormick. So he has been through some awesome PD lately. So I want to talk to him about that experience and also a little bit more about those big picture topics that I was just touching on. So let me bring him on now. All right, Andrew, you are back on the show after I don't know how long. It's been far too long. How are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's been a while.
So I assume that you had a good summer. How was it?
I did. It was good. I mean, this is every teacher's answer. It was good, but it was fast, right? And that's definitely true for me.
Yes.
I was really stupid, and man, I should learn my lesson, but the second summer in a row where I've just tried to do too much, and then I'm disappointed that I didn't do more fun stuff in the summer. So in the month of July, I took 2 classes and I taught a class. So my July just kind of evaporated. But otherwise, other than just having a really busy July, it was really good.
Okay, that's cool. Now, I kind of wanted to have you on to talk about professional development because you seemed super excited on Twitter about this climate and culture thing that you were doing.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what that was and kind of, you know, how it inspired you, I guess?
Yeah, I'm actually really fired up from that. And I'm actually, Tim, so flattered that you follow my Twitter. That has been kind of a dead account for the last year or so.
I was just going to say, yeah, I haven't been on Twitter very much, but just here and there, you know, I've just been kind of creeping without posting stuff, which I need to fix that and get back to saying stuff. But I logged on for a couple days in a row and you were just fired up about everything that was going on. It was kind of exciting to see.
Yeah. So I went to this really awesome conference, and I think the first tweet of the conference was time to dust off the Twitter. I will say, I think that's that's what I think Twitter is really great at that other social platforms don't do, is kind of like a live check-in at an event. It's awesome. It makes going to a conference or a talk or a symposium really fun, because then you can hashtag stuff and see who else in the room is picking up on the same nuggets that you are, and you can kind of network with people. So I really dig it for that. But yeah, it's been a year since I've kind of used Twitter because I'm kind of more Instagram because of how visual it is. But yeah. So enough about social platforms and social networking. The conference itself was awesome. And it was I'll probably butcher the name, the third annual school conference on climate and culture. And it was hosted by Des Moines Public Schools. Now, I don't work for Des Moines Public Schools. I'm in one of the suburbs. And I believe all the Des Moines Public School people get to go for free. And then it's like part of their like kickoff to the school year professional development. And then people outside in the suburbs, like if we want to go, like my school district paid for me to go, which was awesome, but I don't get like PD credit for it. But man, it was like some of the best PD that I'd actually had in a number of years. So I was really excited to go. It was awesome.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Like, what was so great about it? Like, following along from afar, it seemed to kind of have a theme and some coherence and some inspiration. Like, is that what it was? And I guess, thinking bigger picture, is that what you need at the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, so it really was what I needed. I actually needed sort of like a checking back in with some of the things that I am passionate about because I don't think this is any surprise. I think people who have listened to the podcast, or maybe people who don't know this, I've had a couple rough years of teaching and years where I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling quite as effective and I'm having to start things over and I feel like I'm stuck in a rut. And it was a little kind of fiery session to like, be like, you know what? Like you did this for a reason. You have a calling, you have a purpose. Like, come on, like be passionate and committed again. And it was very fiery and very inspirational. I will say I went to one session, like a breakout session that was very, very good. I went to one or two more sessions that were kind of ho-hum. I'm not going to lie. They were like, okay, and that happens at a conference. You think something sounds good and it's like just all right. It was kind of nothing new. But then the thing that sealed it for me, there were just fantastic keynote speakers. And that's where actually most of the tweets and sort of the kind of like nuggets of wisdom and inspiration that I got was from the three keynote speakers.
Let me ask you this, like when you have all of these kind of great ideas and kind of get you back to being more passionate about, what you're wanting to do in your classroom, does that make some of your first days with kids go a little bit better?
Oh man, that is such a good question. I wish. I'm going to be honest. I wish it made my first day go better. As we're recording this, and I don't know when it'll be released, we've had one day with students. And I always think the first day is so weird and I don't like it. And I wish I could get like more like, yeah, it's the first day. And the reason I'm not like that is most of the schools I've been to recently, they take like 3/4 of that first day with like, here's where you get your supplies and here is the lunchroom procedures and this is where you'll drop off this. So I actually saw my students in class for 10 minutes. And it's really hard to be like, hey guys, we're going to have a great year. I'm so fired up. See you later. And because especially like with high school kids, like by the time they came and saw me, it was like 1:30 and school gets out at 2:50. Like they had done nothing but procedures and here's how we go to the auditorium and meet with your homeroom teacher and do this. And by the time like they kind of got to me, because I don't have a homeroom, they were so tired. And I just, rather than be all like fiery and tell them how awesome it was, I was gonna be like, I just kind of commiserated with them. I'm like, I know guys, I know it's the first day. I know like you're all fired up and then we kind of throw a wet blanket on you guys, but just wait till Monday because on Monday it's going to be real and it's going to be exciting. So it gave me some concrete things to think about that I want to do a better job at, and it was a nice little primer on that to kind of reconnect with what did I do well last year? What do I want to do better? So that was really helpful.
Let's talk specifics. Like what are those things that, you want to do better? What are those things that, professional development at the beginning of the year make you kind of think about for the upcoming year? Like, what are you focusing on?
So that conference was all about kind of how to change the climate and culture of your building. So, whether it's, low morale of a staff, and like we've all been in buildings like that, or if it's, staff members or even yourself who feels like, well, I taught them, they're not learning, that's on them. Well, they earned this F. I did what I could, but they want that F. And like kind of that like giving up and giving in to things that are difficult. And this conference is like, like screw that. Like you can't do that. And so that was really nice to see and hear and think about again. So for me, it really got me thinking about grading. And a big push of that conference is like how to deal with difficult kids, how to deal with tough kids, right? And one of the things that I kept thinking about is, why do students ever fail in my art class? It's because they don't do the work. And I used to think, and I knew that there was more to it than this, but I always used to think that it's because those kids didn't know how to play school well. Like they didn't have the toolkit to have stick-to-itness and grit. And I'm actually kind of falling out of love with that word. I got to think about it a little bit more before I kind of put some opinions on that word. But I used to think like they just, for whatever reason in their background or whatever they have going on at home, they just can't do it. And it's really tough for them. And now I think that there might be some of that, but I also think like, I don't know, as teachers, if we've convinced enough students that school is for them. You know what I mean? Because we have students all the time say, I'm not taking your test. I'm not doing your project. I'm not doing that assignment. And it's this like, I'm not going to take ownership over that thing because that thing is stupid and it's irrelevant. It's biased. It's whatever problematic it is. And I just think some of our toughest kids kind of haven't bought in that like what we're doing in the classroom is for them, right? They haven't taken ownership of it. And I started thinking about all the kids that I had specifically in digital photography who they didn't feel it. It wasn't for them. They didn't like it. And it's like, how can I make that so that they have more ownership of that? So I don't have kids who kind of check out on me. So there's a lot going on because it's like, it's not just assessment, because whenever we talk grading and how a kid fails and turns stuff in and late work, that's assessment. But it's also like curriculum and is it open-ended enough that kids feel like they can make it their own? So I've got a lot of things that I want to clean up, and that's why it was so good for me to kind of hear that message.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And actually, I think we should do a whole nother podcast on the grading and motivation and all of that kind of stuff. But sticking with the PD for right now, like how do you make these ideas kind of keep going throughout the year? Like, how do you follow through with the things you're motivated with now? Because I feel like, so many times we have decent professional development at the beginning of the year. Everybody's fired up. Everybody gets into their classroom. They're excited about that. And then you never follow up. Like there's no more talk about these ideas or very little talk about those ideas moving on from your school or your administration or wherever that's coming from. So I guess the question was like, how do you get these goals, these ideas to keep going? How do you keep working toward them throughout the year?
Well, okay, I'm going to give you kind of like, I know the answer, but I don't want to just say it. I want to give you kind of an analogy, right? Okay. So imagine, the beginning of the school year, all of us teachers, we've like rekindled our fire, right? And we're on fire with passion and energy for our students. And we have this little fire that's growing and glowing. And then in the process of, the workload and the 180 kids that we see and the stuff and the hurdles and the grind, that fire starts to kind of like go out, right? So maybe this is hearkening back to some Boy Scout stuff of mine, some Boy Scout experiences over the summer. But like the way that a fire grows is like it needs more stuff around it, like more kindling. So what I think, like as teachers, and I've been bad about this the last couple of years, I haven't had like a network of people to kind of get with and buoy like that fire and help me out. And like, they're going to add some stuff to my fire and keep it going. And I'm going to add some stuff to their fire and keep it going. And actually, I'll be honest, I think when you're struggling, and maybe this is human nature, or maybe this is my own weakness, when I feel that times are getting rough, rather than maybe going and finding the people that can keep my fire going, I find other people whose fires are almost out also. And then we sit around and complain about how our fires are almost out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's so like the
yeah.
Oh, it's so easy to do because it kind of feels. There's a part of it. It's like, well, it feels good to know that I'm not the only person that like by February is sick of feeling like I'm banging my head against the wall, or I'm sick of not feeling supported. So there's some comfort in feeling like you're not alone. But at the same time, and I need to do a better job of that this year, you got to snap out of that crap and be like, okay, so like, what are we going to do about this? Because both you and me, and maybe this whole team of 3, 4, 5 people, we all kind of feel like, our fire is going out. We're not supported. And let's be done with the pity party. And like, what are we going to do to move forward? One of the things, and I mean, this is on every like Nike billboard and, bumper sticker and advertisement, inspirational poster. But I just kept thinking like, no more excuses, right? Like, kids make excuses for why things aren't going well, but we're adults. As teachers, we need to make like action plans. We need to make like progress. And too often, I think maybe it's because as teachers, we work with kids and it's tough. We kind of fall into that same rut. Like, well, here's all the excuses for why I'm feeling frustrated or I'm feeling unsupported. Man, screw that. Like, we got to buck up and like just like no more excuses, like just get it done, and that's what I'm trying to kind of carry over into some of my tougher classes or into those moments where I'm feeling like I'm struggling a little bit. I'm going to lean into it and embrace how I'm struggling and not run to like, well, if I just had a better budget and if I just had this, like, screw that. That's an excuse. Like, make it better, So
how do you ensure that you keep your mindset right throughout the year? How do you avoid falling into that trap of, I don't know if you want to call it despair or negativity or whatever? Like, are you just checking in every few months and trying to make sure that your mindset is still where it needs to be? Are you reflecting on stuff throughout the year? Like, I mean, what are the concrete ways to make sure that, you can follow through with all of these ideas?
Well, that's a good question, and I can make some snide jokes about, I've been going to yoga a lot lately, so that gives me more presence, and I think anything that you can do, whether it's meditation or yoga, running, anything that gets your mindset right and your mental state right is good. I've also been thinking a lot lately, I think in this country, dude, this is not the answer you were expecting, but I'm going to go off on a tangent. I think in this country, we are seeing that we really do have a mental health crisis. I mean, there's been recent studies done. And I think as people who work in middle school and high school, we see kids struggle with that. And I think something that we don't talk about is like, I think teachers struggle with that. Whether you want to call it mental health or you want to call it, feeling burnout or keeping alive. I almost think, teachers got to be more open with talking about getting help for, outlook, sort of the mindset, keeping it fresh. So whether that means that like as a teacher, you're going to see someone to talk it out, or maybe that's just you have a good team around you that keeps you going, that keeps you lifted. I hope that my PLC work this year, we can like get rid of some of like the fluff and be that support system for each other, hold each other accountable, not just kind of commiserate and then talk about nice pleasantries about what we did over the weekend. But we can actually like I said, no more excuses, like make an action plan, like make progress. I actually had a breakout teacher or a breakout facilitator during that conference, the one that I went to that was really good. She did a really cool thing where she had everyone kind of like write this poem about the beginning of the year, like how we're feeling about it and getting into it, which was kind of a fun exercise. And then we moved around the room and talked to other people about our poem. But one of the things that she did, which I thought was cool, was she made us all fill out a postcard with like the first stanza of that poem. And then she's going to mail it back to us later on in the year. Like I don't know when. and then that's going to show up. So I do think there's little things as a teacher you could do, little hijacks to keep your mental state like strong and keep yourself focused and carry that like PD fire throughout the year. So whether it's having a file folder that is the feel good notes that your kids have given you, whether it's notes from a conference where you were writing some really inspiring stuff, or go checking out your Twitter feed when you were writing all this like inspiring hashtag stuff. I think there's some ways that you can kind of recheck back in and recalibrate some of that positivity that we had at the beginning of the school year.
We'll go ahead and wrap it up there, and everybody can walk away with some positivity and some good ideas. So, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we can get you on back again soon, and we'll chat about grading and motivation and all that good stuff.
Yeah, cool. I'm excited about that one. I'm fired up about that one.
All right. Good to talk to Andrew, as always. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, I don't know that we're going to be able to answer all of the questions that I raised, but it is good to talk to him about some of those ideas. Now, obviously, would be remiss if I did not tell you about all of AOE's professional development offerings, because flat out, that's what we do. So if your school is lacking in what they're providing you, check out what we have at AOE. Okay. If you've sat through really boring stuff at the beginning of your school year, okay, really irrelevant stuff, just know that there's better stuff out there. There are more opportunities out there. Okay, we have a lot of just one-time professional development opportunities that are amazing. We have a ton of grad courses. We have a ton of studio courses if you need any of those. We have the Art Ed Now conference that I talk about all the time. Obviously, I love it because it's one of my main jobs here at AOE is putting that together. And, that's some of the best one-day professional development that you can do. And even if you don't have the money to do things like that, okay, or your school will not help you, okay, we have podcasts that come out every week. We have articles that come out every day with all kinds of different ideas for just about any topic that you need. So long story short, whether, you need a one-off or you need something that's ongoing and simple, hey, we have it for you. Or if you have the money to subscribe to ArtEd Pro, or even better, if you can get your school to pay for a subscription to ArtEd Pro, that is the best ongoing professional development that you can get. All sorts of amazing topics, amazing resources, and video on demand for whatever you want to teach. Okay, so just think about, what you want your professional development to look like. Think about those opportunities that are out there and make sure you take advantage of them, because, we're all on the same page here. We want to create amazing art teachers. And so I hope you take the initiative to find what you need and do what you need to do to make yourself a better art teacher. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Thank you, as always, for listening. And your homework this week is to find some of that good professional development, an article, an interesting video, a podcast that you haven't listened to yet. Hey, that is your goal for this week. And feel free to shoot me an email about what you're exploring on the AOE site and what you're finding. I always love to hear that. Okay, we'll talk to you next week.